Hello, everyone. Welcome to another educational episode where we're going to be covering the topic of protocol redemptions. Protocol redemptions activated for the first time approximately 2 to 3 weeks ago, and it's a mechanism that's been baked into the protocol since day one but has never been used. So, what redemptions are is essentially the protocol is permissioned to be able to turn in Silk and redeem it against all the different Shadelen vaults. So essentially, it can turn Silk in and pull USDC out of the USDC Shadelen vault, and in return for taking that USDC from the vault, it pays a premium to existing vault holders in the form of Silk. So it essentially pays off their debt at a premium, pulls USDC out, and this is a really intelligent mechanism because vault holders win. But you might ask yourself, when do redemptions become viable? Like, why would the protocol be willing to pay some sort of premium? And the answer is that there's this really unique game theory that emerges when Silk starts to go under peg. You see, everyone that takes out a Shadelen loan in the form of Silk, at some point in time, in order to unlock their original collateral, will need to turn in Silk to pay off their debt. And in order to do that, they have to buy their Silk. They have to buy the Silk from somewhere. And the beauty is when Silk is under peg, you have the opportunity as a vault holder to buy Silk at a discount and pay your debt at a discount. And when you buy the Silk, this pushes the price up and back towards peg. But what we saw 2 to 3 weeks ago was Silk was 7, 8, 9 cents under peg, and none of the vault owners were willing to jump in and take advantage of the discount. And this is really interesting game theory because if even a single large vault holder decided to buy back Silk, they would be taking advantage of the discount, pushing Silk back to peg, and then all the other vault holders that didn't take advantage of the discount would essentially be waiting, like they missed out on their opportunity to take advantage of the discount. Someone front ran them and took advantage of it first, but no one was taking advantage of the discount. And so this is when redemptions come into play. I'm gonna reduce my camera here and go ahead and share my screen just to review the game theory. So vault holders have the opportunity to buy back Silk at a discounted price to pay back their debt when Silk is under peg. But if you think Silk will keep going down, you might as well keep waiting to get an even bigger discount, right? So essentially we had colluding vault holders that didn't mind Silk being under peg, and they essentially thought that Silk was going to continue to go down, which means they would have an opportunity to buy Silk at an even greater discount. And so, that's one set of stakeholders is your vault holders. But then, meanwhile, you have all these Silk holders, all these LPs that are like watching Silk not be at target peg, and this is really bad for liquidity and adoption. So the interesting thing about Silk being under peg was solvency-wise, Silk's 180% collateralized. So the problem is not like, oh, there's not enough collateral backing Silk. The problem is there wasn't enough vault holders willing to partake in the arbitrage. And so the solution within this game theory is to create an urgency. You need people to be competing for that discount opportunity. There needs to be more urgency around the discount. And so there's two ways you can do this. One way is interest rates. One way is redemptions. Currently on Shadelen, one of our favorite features is that we don't charge interest rates. But when you have no interest rates, it means you're not accumulating debt in any capacity. And so there's no urgency for you to pay back your debt because there's no cost to not paying back your debt. So one tool that Shade used is that we upped the interest rates on some of the largest vaults. But then redemptions is this other mechanism that's even stronger of a force than redemptions. So essentially, redemptions, it's a powerful stability mechanism that taps into the over-collateralized nature of Silk to ensure that Silk maintains its peg. And the protocol can turn in Silk and redeem it at the peg rate against vault collateral. And essentially what we're telling the vault holders is that if you don't take advantage of the discount on the open market, the protocol will do it for you and make sure both the protocol and you benefit. And this creates this powerful game theory force where once vault holders realize that this discount will not last forever, that the protocol is going to come in and actually use their collateral to take advantage of it, suddenly there's urgency to buy Silk at the discount, which is ultimately what brings it back to peg. And so this is kind of the loop of what happens here. So upper left-hand corner, Silk is under peg. Let's say the target peg is $1 and it's at 98 cents. What the Dow can do is it says, hey, I'm going to turn in 100 Silk that's currently valued at 98 cents into the USDC vault. The thing is that when I'm redeeming, I'm going to redeem as if Silk is worth $1, which is the target peg. So I turn in 100 Silk at 98 cents and I get 100 USDC of Silk in return. And then what you can do with this 100 USDC is you then go to Shadeswap and the open market and you purchase, 102 Silk off the open, because the open market's still treating it like it's worth 98 cents. But we just turn Silk in for USDC as if Silk is worth $1. And so then what we do, the protocol, is it's purchasing the 102 Silk at the 98 cents for 100 USDC. And this buy pressure is what's pushing Silk back to peg. And then the protocol is essentially performing this looped arbitrage where it keeps turning in Silk, pulling USDC out of the vault, buying more Silk, and it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And this loop is profitable for the protocol. It's profitable for the USDC vault holders, and ultimately it brings Silk back to peg. So you might be asking yourself, wait a second, like what's the trade-off here? There's got to be a trade-off. The trade-off is that USDC vault holders are essentially giving up their USDC in exchange for their Silk denominated debt being decreased at an accelerated rate. So there's some USDC vault holders that might not like that, right? And this is a built-in social feature to the Lend product. So for anyone that doesn't like the concept of the protocol occasionally tapping into the collective vault holders collateral to ensure the promise of Silk stability, ultimately they can choose to use a different product. But the beauty is, once you understand this mechanism, as a Lend participant, you can trust that Silk is going to maintain its peg because of the over-collateralized promise. And so it means the loan you're taking out is more valuable, more consistent, and is more trustable. So we believe this kind of socialized game theory that the protocol is kind of the arbiter of is super strong. And the beauty of redemptions is that the protocol did one redemption loop, shifted price about 2 cents, and then immediately the rest of the market participants started piling in, and taking advantage of the discount was still there, because this is kind of the beauty. Like we said, the original problem, it wasn't over collateralization. The original problem was urgency. People didn't have any urgency about taking advantage of the discount. But once the protocol steps in with redemptions and starts taking advantage of the discount by performing this arbitrage loop, people realize, like, wait a second, like, I want to take advantage of the discount while it's still here. And so it ended up creating really like a self-fulfilling prophecy using everyone's collective collateral. So insanely powerful mechanism. The protocol does not plan on using redemptions unless Silk is greater than 2 cents off of peg. I think will probably be the target before it starts to step in. And it's, as a vault holder, you end up, having your debt paid off at a premium. You walk away in a better position. Only trade-off is you're kind of swapping out USDC for Silk. And I think one of the other really interesting things to note here is that, the Terra collapse was really interesting because there was not enough assets backing the liabilities. And so they kind of talked about what if we had a bunch of Bitcoin in a DPEG scenario? We can tap into this Bitcoin by selling it and buying UST to bring it back to peg. What's super interesting is this looping mechanism is essentially it's a much stronger and financially sound version of some of those Terra loops. And here's why. So one, it's tapping into collective over collateralization, right? So Terra Luna was only 20% backed by assets. It was literally backed by one volatile asset using a burn and mint feature. So very, very finicky versus, Shade Protocol, 180% asset to liability ratio. And it's a diversified set of assets. It's not just one volatile asset. It's a bunch of different types of assets. So there's a diversified risk on that front. And then the other lesson learned is you don't want these stability mechanisms to be permissionless, because the instant it's permissionless, any actor can come in and they can try to mess with these stability mechanisms by, buying a bunch over here, interacting with the stability mechanism, and creating kind of spiral effects. But because only the protocol can pull it off, and the protocol is incentivized in the interest of everyone to maintain Silk's peg. It's essentially incentivized to protect itself, right? A vault holder interests are greater than the protocols. So the only actor that can be trusted with certain stability mechanisms, especially something like redemptions, this type of arbitrage loop and socialized tapping into of the over-collateralization, the only entity that's capable of being trusted for that is Shade Protocol itself. And so that's a lesson we learned from Terra. It should be permissioned. It should be tapping into more than one type of collateral. It should be over-collateralized. And so we're still tapping into the psychology of UST, where once people see something going back to peg, they start to front run things going back to peg, right? Like that type of, you want your market participants to understand the backing and understand the strength of the mechanic, so the mechanic doesn't even have to be used. It's just the community interacting with these discount scenarios. But now that redemptions have been used, the community was super excited. Silk went back to peg within 24 hours. It doesn't break any rules of finance. The only thing it does is create a trade-off where it says, vault holders, if you're not going to take advantage of the discount, the protocol is going to step in and make sure that collectively all of us do together. And we all walk away net positive. It's just creating that urgency, creating the game theory to make sure Silk continues to maintain its stability. So anyways, guys, that's the episode on redemptions. I hope that explanation maybe gave some insights into that mechanism. Honestly, it was probably the coolest thing that I've seen in Shade Protocol's history from the Silk side of things, because it's a new stability mechanism that's never been used before, and it worked perfectly. And that's super exciting. So thank you all for your time. Hope you have a wonderful day. If you have any questions, be sure to leave comments below. Bye.